Καλησπέρα και πάλι. Εύχομαι να έχουμε επανέλθει όλοι στις θέσεις μας και μέχρι στιγμής να είναι εξαιρετικά επικοδομητικό για όλους και να σας βρίσκουμε όλους εδώ παρόλο που είναι μια δύσκολη ώρα. Θα ήθελα λοιπόν στο σημείο αυτό να καλωσορίσω το πάνελ το οποίο ξεκινάμε και να έχουμε τα ενδιαφέροντα. Θα έχουμε πρώτον τον κύριο Ron Tanner. Ron is the Vice President. Hi Ron, how are you?
Hello there, Dimitris.
Thank you for joining us. Ron is the Vice President of Education, Content and Advocacy for the Specialty Food Association. And he's in SFA, he's a member since 1987. And it's 3,900 plus members. He's also presents 40 plus educational program each year. So Ron, the floor is yours to give us an idea about what is going on in the new era and COVID-19 in specialty food. And I have to mention that specialty food is also the association that provides the two specialty food shows, one in June, one on January. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID-19 and due to pandemic, they were postponed, but in any case, the association is always there for its members. So please, Ron, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And I need to introduce also the other persons, the other members of the panel, is Miss Julia Hedges. And hi, Julia, how are you?
Hi, great, thank you. I'm so pleased to join you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Julia is the president of the United States Fashion Industry Association, and she represents brands, retailers, importers, and wholesalers based in the United States, and they're doing business globally. So thank you very much, and we're expecting really your input in this panel, that it's very important, and also for many Greek companies that they are operating in the specific sector and field, and we are a traditional, a trend and fashion industry also in Greece. And last but not least, I have to welcome to our panel Daniel Fabricant.
Hey, Dimitris. We'll see you again.
Daniel Fabricant is the CEO and president of the National Product Association. It's the nation's and US largest and oldest trade organization representing the natural products industry, including dietary supplements, food, personal care products, and more. Mr. Dr. Fabricant served as the director of the Division of Dietary Supplement Programs at the US Food and Drug Administration, where he directed agency policy, public affairs, and regulatory actions regarding the regulation of the dietary supplement industry. And I had the honor to meet Daniel last year. It's a year passed through the board of directors of the National Product Association, and thank you very much, Daniel, for this. So let's begin with Ron. Ron, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitris. And could somebody share my slides, or should I be doing that myself?
I think you should share your screen, and you can. And just enter full screen on your slides. That's what you have to do. Okay, no worries, because this is happening. I mean, we are disrupting the technology now, and we are not so familiar, but everything will be done, no worries.
Dimitris, can you see them now?
Yes, thank you very much. Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And it's an honor to be able to present the specialty food trends post-COVID. What I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about how things were going very well in 2019, and then how they've adapted a little bit. And I know a lot of people have talked about those adaptations. I'll skip past this. This is me. I'm the Vice President of Education, Content, and Advocacy for the Specialty Food Association. And we've been around since 1952 with 3,900 members that manufacture, import, distribute, and retail specialty food products. In 2019, U.S. specialty food sales topped $158.7 billion. That's actually larger than the entire budget of the state of New Jersey. So it's a very big industry that's been growing quite fast. 75% of the sales at retail. Before the pandemic, 22% through food service, 3% online. And obviously those have been changing quite a bit this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit going forward. Specialty foods represent 20% of all food sales at retail, so they're a big part of the business. When we started doing this research, which we do with Mintel International, back about 15 years ago, it was 8%. So they're growing tremendously, and a lot of that is because of great imported foods coming in from Greece and other countries, and the great domestic producers in the United States. Between 2017 and 19, sales of specialty food at retail jumped by about 9%, while sales of all food increased by just 3%. So specialty foods are growing 3 times faster than all food, and that's really been taking place this year as well, maybe even more so. You can see how it's been growing 10%, 9%, leveling off a little bit, but then jumping up a lot in 2020 and 2021. Again, 9% versus 3%, growing 3 times faster. Refrigerated products are growing the quickest. They grew by 11% in that 2-year period. So a lot of great opportunities for refrigerated, yogurts and cheeses and other refrigerated products. In channel sales, what I showed you before, the brick and mortar retail, food service versus online, but you can see the online growth really tremendous, growing by 132% in that 2-year period, and that's before this year. So obviously some of the other speakers have been talking about online growth, and it's growing really a lot. Brick and mortar, you can see the breakout between mainstream stores, specialty food stores, and natural food stores. So a lot of growth in each of the sectors. Specialty foods are becoming very omnipresent in the US and are moving into the mainstream quite a bit. And you can see here that the growth of 4%, 1.3%. So a lot of growth in all the different types of stores, with probably the specialty food stores growing the least. Because of specialty foods moving more into the mainstream stores, which would be supermarkets and a Target and a Walmart, and also into natural food stores. Category sales, the top 10 categories: cheese, obviously very important, chips, pretzels, and snacks, chocolate and other confectionery. So those are the top 10 categories. The top 10 categories represent almost half of all specialty food sales. And then when you look in the ones with the highest dollar growth, a lot of plant-based products there, and a lot of snack foods, jerky and meat snacks. You're seeing water, you're seeing rice cakes. But again, a lot of growth in these categories, which are good opportunities, but they're starting from rather small categories, which is why their growth is so high. I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and go into 4 different categories, which we can talk about. Mintel broke specialty foods into essentials, plant-based, snacks, and beverages. And you can see oils and vinegars and condiments are in nut and seed butters. These are all within these essentials. They represent 41% of the market. They're growing slightly ahead of the pace of the total market. And I mentioned before, the top 4 categories, 50% of sales. During COVID, certain areas, I think we all know, baking got a big boost, oils and vinegars got a big boost, soup got a big boost. And then specialty items at the beginning of the pandemic, people were passing over specialty for conventional. But then when a lot of the conventional brands were sold, they moved into the specialty. So in long term, it has really helped specialty food products. Plant-based products growing plant-based products growing 3 times the pace of the total specialty market, up 27%. A lot of that is in plant-based milk. All categories got a boost during the pandemic, and will continue to grow very quickly. Snacks are a big part of the specialty food market in the U.S., 7% of the market. They've kind of matured a little bit. They're growing slower than total specialty market, but during the pandemic, people wanted snacks. They wanted something to comfort them. So specialty snacks were growing a lot faster than conventional, and they will continue to grow going forward. Beverages, 17.5% of the total market, growing at about the same pace. Coffee, water, and fresh juices dominate the market. Coffee, water, things that you would be drinking at home obviously grew a lot, and the grab and grow items like ready-to-drink coffee, ready-to-drink tea, refrigerated juices fell during COVID. So, just some ideas about what was up and what was down during that part. So just a quick wrap up. The pandemic economy will be enforced through 2020. It'll start to slowly wane next year, but we are predicting, along with Mattel, the growth rate for sales of food at home will be roughly twice what it would have been without the pandemic. So there is a great opportunity there for the food at home products. The essentials will remain the main beneficiary while people are sheltering. Olive oils, condiments, different things like that. People are going to be buying those. Plant-based specialty, again, has a lot of runway left for growth. Snacks has had its growth phase. The new future will be a little bit below the trend, but big categories like chips and chocolate will be going along strong, and specialty beverages will continue to grow at a great rate. So that's what I have to share, Dimitri. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ron. It was really interesting. And we'll be back after the presentation of Julia's and Daniel's. So Julia, are you ready?
I am ready.
Great.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, right now, yes. Great. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Julia.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. It is such an honor to join you today. And I have a lot of slides because I know you'll be able to see the presentation later, but I want to just run through some of the highlights. So first, a word about USFIA, the U.S. Fashion Industry Association. Our motto is fashion made possible by global trade. And even in these difficult times, we find that the global brands and retailers who are our members are still doing a lot of business, and business is expanding. So I'm happy to share some thoughts with you today. Our work for the industry at USFIA is communication, information that we share with our members, education, webinars that we do on a regular basis, and of course, advocacy with government officials. So a few words about what do fashion brands and retailers think in the US, and I'm sharing some perspectives from our fashion industry benchmarking study last year. And the obvious thing that everyone has talked about, COVID-19 affects everything that we're doing this year. So I just wanted to share a couple of slides that kind of show you the roller coaster ride we've been on here for retail sales in the US, where you can see, years, more than a decade of relatively stable sales with a huge drop in April, a huge increase in May. And we currently are still above the average that we might have seen in the past. So, and compared to a year ago, good news for us was that September sales were up. And in September, the sales at clothing and accessory stores were up more than other types of stores, up 11%. Which was great news for our members, because while we mainly focus on apparel, our members also sell home textiles, footwear, accessories, and other products. So this was great news. However, we're running into some supply chain issues, and I'm sharing a slide from our conference earlier this month that kind of look at what happened with monthly cargo volumes into the East Coast, into the Port of New York and New Jersey, where they were down, obviously, this year, and then finally were positive in August and then surged in September. And we are now seeing, obviously, definitely some issues with the supply lines for cargo that's coming into the ports. So a few sourcing insights from our benchmarking study. And all right, the obvious is, COVID-19 disrupted the supply chains. It affected workers. It made it more difficult to conduct factory audits. So you kind of see the breadth of the impact on business here. In our benchmarking survey, the bad news was that for the 7 years that we've done this survey, that was the least optimistic outcome, less optimism about the next 5 years. However, what I thought was a relatively silver lining to that cloud is that we still had more than half of the respondents who were optimistic or somewhat optimistic about the 5-year horizon. The good news in our benchmarking survey is that even in the midst of COVID, companies are planning to hire, and expanding hiring obviously suggests expanding business. The positions most likely for hiring, and I know some earlier speakers talked about sustainability, compliance-related specialists and managers, supply chain specialists like logistics, sourcing specialists and data scientists, were the types of positions that companies are looking to continue to hire even in COVID times. This is probably the slide that I think is the most important, and I want to spend just a few minutes on this slide because in our benchmarking survey, we try to do what we call the Sourcing Scorecard. So kind of like a Yelp review from sourcing executives on what are the things that they look at and how do they balance when making sourcing decisions. And so put aside the impact of COVID, but in general, what is it that companies are looking at? And we look at the criteria of speed to market, sourcing cost, flexibility and agility, and then 2 risk factors, risk of labor and social compliance and risk of environmental compliance. And what I think is really important when we drill down and when I talk with members is it's the concept of flexibility and agility. That in some ways outranks other criteria. Speed to market, that's an issue that obviously geography has an impact on. Sourcing cost, traditionally everyone thought that cost was the major issue for sourcing decisions, right? That it was the lowest price. But that's not necessarily true. And I think that's at a range of companies, not just the high-end designer type of brands and retailers either, that agility and flexibility are key. So when we did our survey this year, we didn't break out European countries, I'm sorry, but we kind of tried to look at Europe as a whole. And what I think you could see is that obviously, Europe is at the top of the list for no risk of labor and social compliance, risk of environmental compliance. That's not an issue for European sourcing. The places where companies may have had a different perspective, and once again, this isn't talking about Greece, it's talking about Europe as a whole, is looking at cost and flexibility and agility. But I think it's the flexibility and agility area where there's a great opportunity to enhance and expand sourcing as there's more contact and understanding about doing business together. So let me move on. I just wanted to say briefly, sustainability is a key priority. 70% of respondents said they're allocating more resources for sustainability and social compliance, which actually was kind of surprising since many of the brands and retailers here in the US had furloughed staff and laid off staff during the same time period. And I want to share this slide from our premier partner with USFIA, PwC, who in their holiday outlook for October particularly highlighted the fact that these are priorities for younger shoppers. And so I think it's a key issue. And as I say, it's an advantage that European suppliers have of, positive on labor practices and looking at carbon footprint issues. So just briefly, let me say a last few words because it's November. We're in the holiday outlook here in the US. More than half of consumers said they're going to spend the same or more this holiday season, which I think is a positive aspect, since even though just over half said that they do have pandemic impacted income levels here. So that's going to make a difference, but we still are pretty positive on holiday outlook for this year and very bullish for 2021. Others have talked about, you heard some great presentations and looking at online shopping, and once again, what's happening this year is the revolution is really no longer a revolution. It's every day. Shopping is being done online, the clear winner in our outlook for 2020. So thank you so much for the chance to talk with you today and look forward to questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia, for your really, really interesting presentation and some figures that definitely we're going to discuss them in the panel later.
Great.
So, Daniel, let's have in our screen Daniel.
How you doing?
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I don't have slides. However, I think, our industry, and we primarily represent the dietary supplement industry, is considerably up. Everyone wants to stay very healthy in this pandemic. The global phenomenon of self-care, both the dietary supplement industry, over-the-counter industry, are up significantly. Some examples of that are alphabet vitamins A, B, C, D, E, K, have been up over double digit every month of the year, hitting a high point of 52% online in June of this year. So there was really a limited waxing or waning, if you will, of sales in that regard. As Julia just pointed out, our industry has been moving away from independent retail to online significantly over the past 5 years, and you've really seen that spike throughout the pandemic, and you'll continue to see that. But it's not just multivitamins, though. I think what you see are globally stories. You saw in the UK, the Prime Minister there wanted vitamin D to give to everybody in the UK. So I think more and more dietary supplements, especially vitamins, are becoming part of everybody's really day in, day out life, more of a kitchen table product than anything that's on a special basis or a non-routine basis in that regard. So you're seeing more of that. You're also seeing greater penetration into products with immune claims, things like elderberry, primarily from the US as well as Europe, Austria, Germany is where it's grown. Those products are up significantly because folks want to stay healthy. They want alternatives to, to prescriptions, and they don't want to go to their doctors. That's the other thing right now. In the US, this summer, it hit a high point. Doctors' visits were down 67%. Telemedicine was up over 30%. So more and more folks are doing things like we are today with this interface. And so that really puts a lot more in the hands of the people on the call versus getting your script and getting it filled while you're at a medical center or anything like that. So people are really looking in that regard to stay healthy. So immune products, botanicals like elderberry, echinacea, probiotics are also significantly up. I know probiotics and yogurt is a big part of Greek culture, no pun intended. Those are growing even more significantly in the US as there is so much science behind how they keep people's immune systems healthy. And folks are really looking at that right now, especially with families with children. So, but what does that mean? That doesn't just mean it's a rush to market. We've seen some folks, some of our members, big companies like Now Foods, Nature's Way, they've done some market surveys and shown that there are, through the internet retailers, unfortunately, because they don't necessarily have a stake in the ground. I was very interested in Commissioner Yanis's talk earlier about adulterated imports. That's something we've been pushing the agency on hard and love to work with them more on that. Discuss that a bit more in a little while, as that's an emerging opportunity, is really nailing down the quality for the dietary supplement industry. There isn't a GFSI, a Global Food Safety Initiative, which I know a lot of the folks on this that deal in the food import area are familiar with, for dietary supplements. So we're working on one with retailers like Walmart called the Supplement Safety Compliance Initiative, which is effectively the principle of GFSI, but put into dietary supplement regime, which is really more and more important now than ever. So the consumer is really demanding that with the added transparency. And also folks want transparency around claims. If you see products or make products with claims about COVID, there's been substantial pushback by the government on those, both FDA, but moreover FTC, not just in the supplement realm, but FTC sent over 400 warning letters to companies making COVID claims on products ranging from acupuncture needles to pillows, to a variety of liniments, treatments, things like that. So our advice is always don't enter the market with things that sound good to be true. People know that they probably aren't. So that's something that's very important in terms of the trade for the industry, because it really is a global supply chain. That ties also to what Commissioner Yanis had to say. Our industry sources ingredients heavily from Southeast Asia. However, there's been some consideration under this that it may be better to have some of those ingredients available locally. So there's still some ongoing discussions, or look at alternative sources. Are there viable sources in the EU? Are there viable sources in other parts of North America or South America, versus being so heavily dependent on Southeast Asia, where there was a great deal of shutdown and some disruption. However, we haven't really felt the effects of that disruption, I think, largely throughout the industry. Some sectors have. But again, the vitamin mineral sector stayed very strong. Anything with an immune claim stayed very strong. Probably the only sector that suffered because gyms were closed, not just in the United States, but globally, the sports nutrition sectors, because it's more of a habitual lifestyle type product. And so if you're not working out 4 times a week, more than likely you're not purchasing a protein or post or pre-recovery product for your workout. So those are the opportunities with the supplement industry by and large. One of the big questions that remains, and I know it's interesting throughout the EU because there are proposed rules on cannabis products, specifically CBD, cannabidiol. I know that Ireland has proposed the daily level, and throughout the EU they're looking at that as well. So there may be opportunities there in the future as that gets resolved in the U.S., but it still hasn't been unlikely that it will be in this particular Congress, but possibly to the next Congress. Some folks are hopeful in that. There's also quite a bit of investment in green technologies right now. Folks really do want to see, and we do represent a significant sector of the personal care industry. And it was good to see the folks from Specialty Foods talk about meat alternatives. I think folks are all looking at petroleum alternatives as personal care. They really want to move away from petroleum dependence and look at more natural ingredients as it pertains to their personal care. If they're going to put in their kids' hair on their kids' skin, I don't think they want to think about a 55-gallon of 55-gallon drum of light sweet crude oil. They'd rather see those sourced from plants. So those opportunities continue to outpace in terms of growth traditional personal care about 4 to 1. So that we anticipate to continue. While they start at a smaller part of the market, I think you walk into any retailer or you go online and you really see the growth in personal care in either natural or organic now has become more and more significant. But to reiterate, I think the biggest opportunity and kind of skate where the puck is going is really going to be on the supply chain and transparency, is how to, with the emergence of internet retailers, as well as big box retailers playing such a significant role throughout the pandemic, having that transparency on product quality. Product claims are easier to sniff out. As we said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, but what do we do on product quality? And so I think that's really going to be the next step, is how much traceability is throughout the supply chain for the natural products industry, starting probably the focus on supplements. Is there a GFSI-like movement towards that? We're very happy to say we've moved the ball significantly in that regard, and we should have audits up and running, GFSI-like audits. They cover the U.S. regulatory requirements in January of this year, but we are looking globally. I think one of the things we've seen throughout the pandemic is folks don't necessarily have the ability to go visit facilities with travel restrictions. And so we're really depending more and more on technology to do virtual audits. So what does that mean? How do you have a global virtual audit? So that's a problem that we are addressing as an organization, is one that I think the consumers want more and more knowledge of, as they see how diverse and how really how much of a zigzag there are in the supply chains, and being able to cover that in real time. So that's a huge opportunity, and we look forward to really any questions you have, and looking forward to working with you on product quality globally. So thank you, Dimitris.
Daniel, thank you very much. So I will address to all of you 2-3 questions that I would like to discuss with you. First of all, it is really interesting. Each sector that has a lot of disruption, but if we collect all this data, we can find out that it is from the beginning, the disruptions in the supply chain is the way that people react, the consumer reacts in all this pandemic concerning their health issues. They became more healthy, and they have a mindset that they have to search a lot because they have the time due to online shops in order to purchase their goods, and especially the ones that we're discussing. What I would like to address is with our company also, IdeaMonkeys in United States, we have done a small survey, and now it's ongoing. And we see that there is a very big fear, let's say, and from the wholesalers that all this disruption with online shop, they are not going to have the position in the physical points, so all this turnover will decrease a lot, and because a production line cannot refer to each client itself. So all this is a very big issue that it's coming up. On the other hand, what we really see is that small companies, new companies and new production are being established in the United States in order to replace some really big orders from Asian countries, or due to all these tariffs and all these Asian Pacific now free trade agreements. It's a new environment. So can you please just 1-2 words, in this environment, do you believe that Greek companies, that they have all these years the opportunity to drive their companies and to build products for smaller consumer targets, that it wasn't so huge, and they have really quality products? Is there any opportunity of having joint ventures or cooperation with United States company and vice versa, so as to build this bilateral trade in each sector? Please, let's start from Julia, because she's the female of our panel. Please.
Thank you very much. I absolutely think there's a lot of opportunity right now. And you highlighted some of the really key points, right? That during the shutdown, we've seen a real surge in entrepreneurial spirit here in the US, right? A lot of people, you see stories that they have gone and started their own companies. And because of the digital advances, right, it's relatively easier now to sell. You can start your company, a direct-to-consumer company selling online relatively easily. The key then is to look at sourcing, and I think that's where there's a real opportunity for more sourcing to the US from Greece, is by looking at, you can digitize your material selection, you can work online for the shape and the fit and the drape of the garment, for example, and come up with a great product that is very unique, which is what people are looking for now, especially when you only have to see the top half of us, right? When we're in a meeting like this, but we definitely want to be wearing something that's a little bit different than a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. So I think there's some terrific opportunities right now.
Great, thank you, Julia. Ron, do you believe? Let's go on with the same question. I mean, I would like to have your input in such kind of. What are the opportunities of the Greek companies concerning, we have discussed a lot of time between us, we have done a lot of efforts, but Greek companies are small, but right now everyone had the issue that there was a filter, a kind of a filter from the wholesalers and the distributors in United States, that because they had a lot of SKUs, they couldn't accept new ones. And it was really big, the effort. So what is going on now?
Yeah, Dimitris, I think that's changing. I mean, American consumers are looking for authentic products, and they're looking for specialty products. Those have been growing a lot over the years. And I think we are going to see a lot of distributors getting those products into their warehouses and getting them out to the stores. And then I think you're going to see a lot of companies that are working with just selling those things online, so they're not going through that supply chain. So I think with Greek products, with some of the smaller producers, some of the more authentic products, there's a really great opportunity in the United States, and that they just need to find kind of the way that they can come in. And that's not necessarily going to be going through the large grocery wholesalers. It might be going through small regional specialty distributors, or an online market in the US. I just think the way products are being distributed are changing, but consumers ultimately want the authentic products, and if the consumers want them, somebody will find a way to get it to them.
Thank you, Ron. And Daniel, I would like to ask, that here is the land of Hippocrates, that he was the one who invented, let's say, it's the land who creates the natural products and the natural care products and all these all this environment that we're talking now about, the healthier food and all that stuff. So what do you believe? Because we have discussed together and we remember that it's a very, very small market niche, but it's a very growing market. What do you believe about this new era?
No, Dimitris, and I'm glad I didn't wear my sweatshirt, Julia. I think one of the things, I'm going to take what both Ron and Julia said. I think it's applicable, but I think in our industry, we see a dietary supplement in itself is approaching 50 billion here in the U.S. domestically. I think as far as shipping goes, sometimes if it's an authentic product, if somebody wants it, a product from Greece, they'll pay a little more for shipping. So I think you'll see that, and to Ron's point about using a specialty distributor versus kind of a big food, drug, mass warehouse. However, we've also seen where there's a lot more partnerships, a lot more just-in-time manufacturing is needed. So we've seen brands from other countries work hard with a partner in the U.S. and have an OEM in the U.S. that they haven't partnered with before, that during the pandemic, they decided, hey, look, we're going to the brand will stay, kind of the IP and the brand will stay with the host country, but the OEM is in the U.S. and those folks work well. You're seeing such a growth, and I imagine same for Ron too, you're seeing such a growth in private label that I really think if folks want to enter the market, that is a big, big way. It's so integrated now in terms of vertically. And if you're at any part in the supply chain, you don't necessarily want to be the brand holder. I think folks right now are really looking for brands that, I hate to say it, but kind of the brands they've seen all their life. It gives them a degree of comfort. And so at least on things they're going to put in their body, I think maybe externally they're a little more open to trying new things, and those are more feel-based than kind of having that tried and true. But I think those are the factors. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities, Dimitris. It really depends on what target you're trying to hit and how big you want your distribution to be. That's really the question. And then the bigger thing, especially in the dietary supplement realm or the over-the-counter realm, is work with a partner on efficacy. I mean, that's a big thing that shapes our industry right now. As you look at, you can't go a day in the news without seeing a story on vitamin D. Naturally, vitamin D pardon the pun again, vitamin D sales are up, close to 20%. So things like that you can't keep on store shelves. So, I think really look and see what the market opportunity is.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And specific now, what is Julia, what do you believe about the next year? I mean, about 2021. Of course, nobody knows. We have all this data that we're trying to analyze every day, but as everybody knows, sometimes we use even everyone tell me lies with statistics, as we call, because we try, to figure out what is behind the numbers. So about your specific field about the brands and all this industry, that it's more sustainable, and about the stock and all that stuff that happened all these years. We saw also a new, really athletic brand in New York. They have released a new experience store in Fifth Avenue, and it was digitalized and completely different than anyone expected last year. And then COVID came. So what do you believe what is coming on? What do you believe? Do you believe that we are going to buy things through virtual reality masks, and or we are going to be socialized again in the really next future, after, of course, the vaccine and all that stuff that it's being running right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. We're not necessarily that great at predictions, but talking with brands and retailers, most folks expect pretty much a roller coaster ride over the next 6 months. That we're here in the U.S., we're particularly feeling the impact of COVID right now with incredible spikes. But we still have, but stores are still open in many locations, and many shoppers want to still go to the store as well as online shopping. So we think Christmas will be pretty good. We'll be okay. Next year, we're going to have a roller coaster ride, and we're probably coming out of it next summer. Now, for some companies, they warehoused product last year that they're going to sell this year, so that there'll be a decrease in production in the short term. But I think we're expecting a very strong rebound, as you say, as the vaccine is out and as spikes in the virus are decreasing. When we get to that point, we expect people are going to want the shopping experience. They're going to want the social experience that shopping brings in person as well as online. And so the second half of 2021, we're pretty optimistic about right now.
Thank you, Julia. Ron, concerning, it's almost the same question, but I would like just to add, specialty food were mostly, purchased through the food service, from restaurants, from cafeterias, from HoReCa industry in general, hotels, and also mainly from supermarkets or specialty stores. All these, it was a very big disruption all these years, and we see that even in New York, that I know well, is about 1,200 restaurants open from 22,000. So what is going on with the market? What do you believe the next 6 months to 1 year? What do you believe as an expert, not through the numbers? As you're feeling personally after 40 years in this market.
Yeah, I feel that people are going to be preparing products at home. People have learned to, enjoy Greek food, enjoy Indian food, and they've come to buy the ingredients, and they've discovered that they like to cook at home. So I think there's going to be a lot of potential for products, for Greek products. People will be making their feta and watermelon salad at home rather than getting it at a restaurant, at least through probably May or June. I do see a pent-up need and almost like to get back out into the world. And I think once everything is good, that people will be going out into restaurants a lot. People really miss that social interaction and, the excitement. And I think once the vaccine gets more prevalent, that there'll be a fairly strong rebound. Obviously, there'll be a lot of restaurants which, could not survive it and are out of business. But I think the ones that are remaining will get very strong business once everything is better. And I see that for the second half of 2021.
Thank you very much, Ron. And final, Daniel, concerning this market, and I remember that also we were discussing a year ago about the functional foods and about all these new this new food trend that it's coming, and even about the soya milk, if it is a milk, and all that stuff that we were discussing. I mean, do you believe that there were so many changes in the mindset of the consumer that even if we start socializing again, everything will be more sustainable and more healthy, and this will be a must for the companies? And what is your perception for the next year? If you can do any approach on this?
Sure. I think primarily, Dimitris, folks are going to want to stay healthy, right? I mean, that's the issue. Everyone's doing everything they can to stay healthy. They want to stay out of medical centers, hospitals, things like that. They're scared about the spread that way. So I think the growth will continue in that regard. Some of the green initiatives, the sustainability initiatives may take a back seat to that. But I think, I think what we've really seen throughout all this is people are so bullish on self-care, on having the ability to go to a store or go online and purchase the products that they really keep as part of their day in, day out health regimen, whether that's, whether that's a Greek herb, whether that's, vitamin D, whether it's a probiotic. I think those patterns are up and are, while they may not stay at the 52% level we talked about over the summer on the alphabet vitamins, I don't see them going away. And so really the next question is, for companies to differentiate themselves, they're really going to have to put in additional work, not just on the marketing side, but really on the efficacy side. What does it mean? What does it mean to keep people healthy? How do you translate that to consumers in science? So I think that's a big part of where the opportunity lies. And like I said, the market will continue to be bullish for natural products, I think, especially those that are, in the self-care arena.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you one by one and all of you together. Thank you very much for joining us. It was really, really interesting. I hope that everyone joined it as much as I do. And what I wish is, first of all of us to be healthy, first of all. The second is I would like to invite you on behalf of the American Chamber of Commerce and myself in Greece, and I wish everything will be different next semester, and after the next semester we will be really happy to be everyone and join together, and also to see you in the specific exhibitions and the shows that we really missed them because it was a meeting point and not so much, all this commercial. It wasn't only the commercial, but we discovered that it was the sector's engagement and the sector's meeting point. So even if we were the same persons, maybe most of the times, but it was this engagement that missed us really a lot. Thank you very, very much, and I wish you all the best for you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Now, Dina, the floor is yours. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Σας ευχαριστούμε. We'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Dimitris Karavasilis, and of course all our esteemed guests for their excellent presentations and panel.